Today on Locked On Phoenix Suns, a nice, sweet Suns win on national TV over the Dallas Mavericks. Not only nice to see, but very meaningful for the Suns' hopes of squeaking into the play-in. We'll break it down next.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Suns. I'm Brendon Kleen, a staff writer at Awful Announcing and a credentialed Suns media member. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this Sunday evening for most of you, after a big win. Don't forget, Locked On Suns, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So click that follow or subscribe button. Do what thousands of other Suns fans have already done. Become an everydayer and get locked on to the Phoenix Suns right here each and every day. Today's episode brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. More from FanDuel later on in the show. Joining me, as always, from the wonderful West Valley, my fellow Suns credentialed media member. How are we feeling? Sunday afternoon, Ben Garcia.
Pretty uneventful win. I think it might be the only uneventful win of the Suns season. Like, pretty much wire-to-wire W outside of that, early stretch where they gave away the ball a bunch of times. So that was kind of nice. We're not seething and wanting to throw things at each other today. So it's a nice stroll on a Sunday morning. Well, Sunday afternoon.
And nice to see, I think, a fan base in a situation that is down worse than the one here in the Valley.
Yeah, man.
The Dallas Mavericks are going through it. They barely even had a full NBA rotation to throw out there. Two of their players ran into each other at one point in this game. We'll get to the standings implications of this and kind of check out where the play-in race sits, considering this is the team directly ahead of the Suns. We'll also circle back on a couple of good mailbag questions that we did not get to last week on Friday when we ran through those, looking a little big picture at things, since, again, this win doesn't really need to be dived into more than a couple of segments worth, but there was a lot to learn, and there was a lot that happened on the Suns side of this. Ben, what was your kind of biggest takeaway? What sticking with you? What are you going to take away from this win?
Yeah, this might be a little far-fetched, but I thought early in this game, the Suns, for some reason, thought that they were just going to run all over the Dallas Mavericks because they were literally playing with 8 guys. I think technically 9, but 8 dudes on this team is what the Mavericks were really rolling it out there with. And I think the Suns just thought they were going to roll the ball out there and beat them. But after 5 turnovers to 0 in like midway through that first quarter, I think it was like the 6-minute mark, I thought the Suns took a page of the Mavericks playbook. Like, if I was a Mavericks fan today, I wouldn't hold my head down because of the team losing. Obviously, there's a lot of other reasons why I'd be holding my head down, but they just played really, really hard. And I thought that kind of ability to go out there and give it 150%, I thought you saw that today with the Suns. I think they saw and learned as well that just giving effort goes a really long way. And the Mavericks giving a ton of effort today, I thought went a really long way. And I thought the Suns today giving a lot of effort. If you just delete that first 6 minutes of the game, I thought it was wall-to-wall one of their better wins of the season. Not impressive wins because, of course, the Mavericks had no one, but it was a quality win, and we haven't seen them be able to easily beat a team for most of the season. So I thought that was really nice to see. What about you?
I agree with you, of course. This is like barely an NBA team. Like, I honestly came away from this one feeling like, how did you let up 116 points and not beat them by double digits? Like, I know that that's ridiculous, but it really does just come back to the same, like, I hate to be kind of a downer, but at the same time, like, it wasn't even that this team got crazy hot from deep, Dallas. Like, they made 17 threes. That's a lot in the modern NBA. But it's a lot, but it's not in the modern NBA is what I was going to say. It's only 51 points. They didn't get to the free throw line a ton. They didn't exactly, fill it up in terms of offensive rebounds. And yet, because of the Suns' turnovers and because of, frankly, like, I understand somebody has to score, but Najee Marshall driving to the basket. Like, that should be easier to just shut down. Like, I think a really good team going up against this Dallas squad, what's their recent schedule looked like? They scored 111 on Memphis. They scored 107 on Milwaukee, 98 on Sacramento. Like, that's sort of, I know that, the Memphis one is pretty similar to what they just did, but like, that's what it should look like. And the Suns just not being able to blow anybody out because they can't defend it's getting tiring. Like, it shouldn't, and then that trickles into minutes where KD and Booker are still playing 38. It's like, this should be a walk in the park. This should be the game's over at halftime. Instead, you were only up 6 at halftime, and you're playing your guys to the bitter end because, they're keep hitting some, Clay hits a 3, this and that to keep it interesting. Like, I don't know. This is a G League team. This team is without their 5 best players, and they're the laughingstock of the NBA, and you barely beat them.
Yeah, what was really funny about what you just said there is you said that the Mavericks didn't even get hot from 3. Yeah, they made 17 3-pointers at whatever. But the Suns were actually really hot from the field. They shot 60% in the first half, but they just can't stop anyone. So I would agree with you. But for me, because I know there's going to be a game coming up that I'm going to rip this defense apart, I'm truly just taking the win at this point and the ability that I never really thought it was in danger, which is a win that, like, I never thought at the point in this game, in the second half, the Suns were ever going to lose, especially when they got up by, I think it was like 71-55 at one point on the Mavericks. Like, that is the good I'm taking from, but I agree with you. I mean, no, Najee Marshall shouldn't have back-to-back games with, I think he might have gotten to 30 points today, but 29 points and then potentially a 30-burger today on the Phoenix Suns. Like, that shouldn't happen, especially for a guy in Najee Marshall who's been
he almost
shot
had a
chugger.
34-point triple-double. He had 10 assists as well. And only 2 turnovers. Like, they made the dude look like an all-star. And I get it. Like, that stuff does tend to just happen when there's only so many players on the roster and nobody in this rotation can dribble. Spencer Dinwiddie looks like a shell of himself again.
Man,
so
he looks old.
Yeah, so I get it. Like, I understand. I'm not even really going to care, like, how it happened. I'm just looking at it big picture and saying 116 is abominable to let up to this group, and it is what it is. But one thing, obviously, that's good about this is that even if this is the one team that the Suns can convincingly beat, it is the only team they needed to convincingly beat the rest of the way, because this is the team in the 10 spot in the Western Conference right now. And this not only helps the Suns narrow that gap, it also gives them a surefire tiebreaker as they chase that 10 seed. So let's take a look at the standings and the implications there next. First, today's show brought to you by DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready. They swoosh, you save, thanks to Dash Pass. Every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game the rest of the season, you score a huge deal the very next day. It's simple. When any player puts up 50 plus in a game during the remainder of the NBA regular season, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. So last week we had Shea do this. Steph did this. Every game's important right now. The playoff race is heating up. The stars are showing up. This is the perfect time to cash in. Game day feast after an epic 50-point performance. Celebrate your team's big night. Maybe somebody here in the Valley does that before long. Order some wings, pizza, burgers from your favorite spot delivered straight to your door, or for a watch party. There's awesome primetime action if you're a Hoops fan. Maybe it's just with your family. Have some good stuff. Order out. Watch the games. Have some fun. Make it a little bit of a more special night thanks to Dash Pass. Sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save. When any player scores 50 plus in a game the rest of the way, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day up to $10 off. Just use the promo code NBA50 from noon to midnight the day after that 50 plus point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. All right, Ben, let's keep it rolling here. Don't forget to sign up for the Locked On Suns daily newsletter if you have not already at LockedOnDaily.com. Suns news, NBA news, great analysis from our staff of writers, as well as fantasy advice packed into one quick read every day. It's free for you if you do type your email address in at lockedondaily.com. And best of all, it supports us without a penny from your pocket. All right. So the Suns obviously win this game then, and they move to what is their record now? They are 30 and 34.
20. Oh, all right.
They are 30 and 34. And the Mavericks move to 32 and 33. And so the Suns are now only 1.5 games behind Dallas. I did a segment last week on the solo show where I was like, the Kyrie injury affects the Suns in two directions.
Yeah.
Dallas is out as a KD candidate this summer, most likely. But more importantly, in the short term, is this team is just their season is over. And so obviously the Suns had to win this one in order to make that even more of a lock. But I said then, and I obviously feel even more strongly now, Ben, that the Suns are going to be the 10 seed at the very least. But I'm probably not going to. They're not going to go any higher than that. But the 10 seed is theirs.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I can't trust. I'm not going. Speaking in definites, Brendon, shame on you that the Suns are going to be the 10th seed.
I mean,
what do you mean? Come on. What do you mean? A bunch of team all year go up against teams that they should win and beat all year, and they lose. It feels like we've been watching the same team all year. Like,
we have.
If you told
but
me
the Mavericks are going to beat less teams, and they're basically even
I'm not talking about the Mavericks. I'm talking. What about Portland? Okay. That's my point. Is I don't think now. Listen, Portland is what is that? 4.5 games behind the Mavs, and there's not a lot of games left. I would agree with you that it probably will get the 10 seed, but I don't know, man. If the Suns rattled off 10 straight losses, like I just can't trust this team. I mean, right now it's not like they have a slew of any good games, easy games coming up. Grizzlies, Rockets, Kings, Lakers, Raptors, Bulls, it's a good chance to get a couple of wins, but then Cavs, Bucks, Celtics, Timberwolves, Rockets. That is an insane gauntlet of teams that you have to go up against. So and there is something though, because I kept thinking about it today with the Suns potentially getting that 10th seed, is I don't know if anyone wants to see Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. Like if the playoffs were still, which they actually never been this, but if the playoffs were just one game, sudden death all the way, like the Suns could actually win the championship, which does kind of suck for one of those teams that has to get the Suns on a 1-game sample size. Because I do think the Suns could win a play-in tournament per se. Now, they played Oklahoma City or the Lakers for that matter. Probably not going to look very good in that first round, but we might get a prolonged season than maybe what we thought of because of that Kyrie Irving injury. Because, man, if you're the Mavericks, you just want to lose out at this point. But the Mavs, they've got the Spurs twice, Rockets, Sixers, Pacers, Pistons, Nets, Knicks, Magic, Bulls, Nets. So not exactly an easy way to go to.
You mentioned the Blazers, and they are 2 games back from the Suns right now. I think everybody would say that team is trending more up than the Suns are, at least. Their defense has been, top 5 or so, I think, since the calendar year switched over. And they have a deep team and obviously showed the Suns that when they matched up. And speaking of those games, they also have the tiebreaker over the Suns as a result of that. So that's a fear. I kind of keep waiting for it with Portland, and so that's why I'm not fully scared of them making up that much ground, because I've been saying that, watch out for them for weeks at this point. So I guess that's why I'm a little skeptical that they haven't made their run. They also have a top 10 remaining strength of schedule, which is always the other thing I try to look at when we're talking about who's going to be where in the standings and all that, is like, what do the standings say now, and then what's the schedule for each of the teams you're talking about. The Suns obviously have far and away the hardest strength of schedule, which is just a joke, just cool at this point. But Portland's in the top 10 as well, so that makes it hard for them. And then Dallas is down at 23, but I literally think Dallas is probably going to be favored to lose every game the rest of the season. I would think they're just really, really down bad, as we talked about. So, and I don't think they're going to rush any of their guys back at this point. So
no,
I do think the Suns are at 10. What's funny is The Clippers are tied with the Kings for 8-9 right now. And for whatever reason, the Suns just own the Clippers this season. So I mean, I'm like you. I'll just say right now, like, I'm not going to pick the Suns to win their play-in game, whoever they play. But it is funny to imagine a world where this Dallas thing implodes. They get to 10. They luck their way into playing the Clippers in the 10-9 game. And then they'll probably have a decent chance of that just because that's the one team they've been able to beat consistently this year. And then anything can kind of happen in that last one. But, you can't expect them to do anything. They're going to get 10 by default and like not even deserve it. And you're muted.
I think they'll get 10, but also something you had mentioned, or I'm not sure if you mentioned this, but the Suns do have the tiebreaker over Dallas too. So they just have to tie with Dallas. So, it's almost getting flashbacks to last year where the Suns had their final 10 games. Well, the Suns are getting into their final 11 games. What do you think they have to go to get in the play-in?
Wait, which one?
What do you think the Suns have? Oh, I guess the Suns have 11 plus 7. They have 18 games left. I was only looking at March, not April as well. But it looks like the Suns have about 18 games left. If I'm doing my quick math as well, correct. What do they got to go to?
I mean, it depends on what Dallas goes, right? But like, I think,
can you go 500?
The Mavs have 17 games left. The Suns have 18.
Okay,
I would say the Mavs are going to go like 2-15 or something. I mean, 3-14. So the Suns only have to go 5-13, right? Like that. That's why I'm so confident in it. The Suns could be god awful, but the Mavs just have to be 2 games worse than that.
Can the Suns win? Can the Suns win 5 games, 6 games?
I mean,
I think so, right? I think so.
But Toronto and Chicago, like those you have to win. By the end of the year, things can. They already lost to Toronto
once.
I know they played those same teams back to back already, and
they beat Chicago.
Well.
Yeah,
but I'm saying we said that the first time, and they only won one. So yeah, the last week of the season, like San Antonio is probably not going to have anything to play for, and they're already depleted. So that and then Sacramento, like depending on how the seeding is shaking out by then, like Oklahoma City. Their B team can beat the Suns, but they won't have anything to play for by April 9th. So, yeah, and maybe you surprise like one of these other teams. Like if you're asking me, can they get to 5? I mean, that's not a very high bar, but you're right. It's not exactly going to – it's not even a lock to do that.
Let me ask you this. What is the percentage chance that the Phoenix Suns are more successful in the playoffs this year than they were last year? I phrased it like that for a reason.
Well, yeah, that's been my bar the whole season.
I know.
The
play-in wins don't count. Play-in wins don't count.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to get to the 8th seed. I don't think they're going to get out of the play-in. So to me, there's no way on earth that they could improve because they won't even have the opportunity to do that.
So 0% chance?
Ben, yes, because no team has gone from 10 and actually won their way out. So why would I pick that to happen? This team's not going to be the one to do it.
I don't think you're wrong. I'm just asking what your percentage chance is for it. I was the one that just told you I think the Trailblazers could catch this team.
Yeah, but I don't get your question then because I'm not being optimistic, and then and then you asked me to go like a level.
I just want to know what the percentage chance
further
is.
on the optimism.
0%. So this is pretty fun, just hanging out in our misery together. But I do have to say, just to not be so Debbie Downer about it, the Suns have played some better basketball recently. And if someone showed up in overtime to help them against the Nuggets, if they win that game, like we are talking about, like maybe they can get out of the play-in. We're not talking about a first round win. We're not talking about a second round win, but we are talking about like, maybe they're starting to catch some fire. Like Mason Plumlee's been marginally better. And I think Tyus Jones has had some spots, very rarely, where I'm like, oh, it was a good play by him. And Nick Richards seems to be opening up the lane and understanding the offense a little bit better. And Katie and Book have been pretty good recently, where I'm like, if they would have beat them, I think we have a different tone today where we're like, hey, maybe they can get out of the play-in. But I think for me, I just want the Suns to be out of the draft lottery. Like, I don't want to see another team getting an envelope and it having the Suns' name on it. That would be a successful season for me, just so I don't have to see that and live through that. So,
and the desperation at that point, where once you're talking about trading either of the two stars, but obviously KD being more likely, you're just so desperate to have it be Houston at that point, and that's just going to make for an awful summer. So I agree. I would not like to see that happen either, but somebody will do this at some point. Obviously, it's going to be around in the NBA forever now, but no team has made the playoffs from the 10 seed. That has not happened, and I would be very hard-pressed to tell you that this Suns team is going to be the one to win 2 consecutive road games and do it. There's been, I think probably you would point to either better teams that have been at 10 or at the very least better, worse opponents that they would have to beat in order to get to that point. Because you're looking at Minnesota here, the Clippers, the Kings. Those are decent teams. So it's not even just about the Suns. It's like the West is just such a gauntlet.
Well,
that
you
good
just
teams
have to
fall down there every year. So I really don't think the Suns are going to be the one to break history here. Nothing tells us that's going to happen.
So Minnesota and the Clippers would play, and then whoever would win that game would play the winner of Kings Suns, and the Suns would. Yeah. And let's just say the Suns won. Mm-hmm. If the Suns get the Kings and the Clippers, you know what? Why not us?
Sure.
And then, hey, man, just to have a little fun with it. They get in and they play the Thunder. How many games do they win?
Well, I just told you my answer.
0. None. Still done. Okay.
I think that this Thunder is way better than last year's Wolves.
Listen, I agree with you. But like, I don't know, KD revenge game, man. He just goes in and drops 60 and we win a game. I think the rules should be the rules should be if you win the play-in tournament as a 10 seed, you only need to win 2 games in the first round to advance.
Yeah, I'm sure the 1 seed would really love that. That's fair to them for sure. All right, that'll do it on this game. Let's get to look back to last week on 2 overflow mailbag questions that I think are a good big picture topic. We'll make them positive. It's people that are frustrated, and we'll try to put our therapy hats on and find some silver linings of how these consistent issues with the Suns can maybe get a little better this summer. Next. First, today's show brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can bet $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. Okay. Bottom line, $200 in bonus bets with that first $5 bet win. You can pick favorites. You can do live bets. You can do a whole bunch of stuff all on the easy and fast FanDuel app. But before we get to the craziness of the NCAA tournament, you're going to want to bag that big favorite bonus bet right there and get it out of the way so that you can just enjoy yourself when the real stuff comes around. So let's see. Women's college basketball. We don't have any bets for Monday. Wow. Conference tournament winners. Can we do that? Just get like a bit, bet Duke to win the ACC tournament. Minus 340. There you go. There's my advice of the day. FanDuel.com, $200 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins, and then get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. All right, wrapping up the show, a couple extra mailbag questions. We'll sort of just combine this into one conversation here, Ben. But the questions come from the Suns subreddit, which is 22nd Century on Reddit, asked, everyone agrees that this team doesn't care or play hard enough. Whose fault is that? And then Zach Angelovich, I think, on YouTube in our community post said, it seems that all of our regular players have lost a bit of confidence during the losing streak. How do you gain that back on a more consistent basis? I think those are kind of circling around the same question, Ben, which is like, why are so many players having, like, underperforming being inconsistent, just not really gelling and looking, even on an individual basis, whether you're looking at even like, forget the big three, like a Grayson Allen or a Nick Richards or Tyus Jones, probably the best example, Ryan Dunn. Like, what do you think is the cause of that, and how can they get back to, I guess, like the Monty era, right? Where it was like everybody felt like they were overperforming that not too long ago here in the Valley. What do you think of when those questions get thrown at you?
Well, me, it felt like the Monty team, this is so weird, but it felt more of like a family with that team. It felt like they all really liked each other. I don't know if this Suns team has ever felt like they've really liked each other. And I think part of that has to do with the Chris Paul leadership mentality. I think he has seen a lot, and I think he played a bigger role in that leadership than you and I had even thought of. Maybe just me. I guess I shouldn't lump you into that, but I think the Suns leadership is just really, really poor, man. And I think you've got to get veteran, older guys in there that can help boost up the confidence. Like I was watching today. Well, obviously we were all watching it, but the Mavericks today have nothing to play for. Their team's awful. Everyone's injured. What I thought was really eye-opening or ear-popping in that game was, I couldn't remember who the color commentator was, but it was the woman, and she was talking that Klay Thompson had been telling guys, hey, I know guys are injured. I know things look bad, but like you should still be playing your hardest for one, to get a contract somewhere else, one, to get an opportunity somewhere else, or three, just professionalism to the game. Like you owe it to the game to play hard. And I thought of that and I was like, man, that's some pretty hard-hitting words. And I immediately thought to Najee Marshall, who's got 29 points and then 34 points tonight, where that's leadership. And I was really surprised. I was like, man, Klay Thompson really doesn't have anything to play for. His legacy cemented, 4 rings, millions and millions upon millions of dollars. The Suns are missing that kind of player. And I know KD seems like a great teammate, but this isn't just him. I think this is an issue on Brad, and even more so at times Devin Booker, who is supposed to be the guy. But I think as we're learning, he's just not that guy. He's a little bit quieter, and he's not as vocal of a leader. And I think this team is missing that guy. And that's how I think you fix it. You go get a Klay Thompson-like guy who maybe could have came over in a KD trade. And I think that helps restore the locker room a bit. What about you?
Yeah, it's funny, right? Like, I am always the type to be almost like annoyingly, I'm sure for some of the everydayers, like, we don't really know as much as we think we know about a lot of these people and blah, blah, blah. And like, I would have said that about the Suns culture in that, 2020 through 2023 range. Is it James Jones? Is it Monty Williams? Is it Chris Paul? Is it Jay Crowder? Is it some combination of all of it? Whatever. And then it's like, well, then Chris leaves and it's like, okay, it was probably him. Like it kind of revealed itself once you remove one ingredient, you kind of realize how important that ingredient was. And I'm not even sure maybe if the Suns knew exactly how big of an impact that all would have had, or maybe they did. But so I think you put it well that is kind of the thing there, family and chemistry and all those sorts of things. And that, like, if I'm being honest, that was one of the things that made me optimistic about this season coming in. And the idea of kind of running it back was just, if you didn't have a good trade to really shake things up, then I was like, maybe it's just being positive because that's what ended up happening. But I was like, okay, I think there is something to be said for just leaving it alone for a while and letting guys actually develop chemistry and get to know each other personally and all that. And that can kind of be a better than the sum of its parts kind of rising tide thing. Obviously that didn't happen, but I think when I look at like why things have taken a hit and why guys seem so off on an interpersonal level and just individually so much fluctuation in their performances season to season, night to night, month to month, is that it's just the chaos of it all. Like, why would they know each other or like each other? Half of them didn't choose to play together. they have gotten, tossed around with different coaching staffs and different play styles every single season. So it's like the definition of being uncomfortable. They can't keep up. They can't keep up with everything that's just been, like a snow globe shaken up every single chance that management has gotten to do that. So I'm sure being in that locker room is frustrating and exhausting and confusing and all that kind of stuff. Like, I get these guys are pros. I'm not like excusing it, but I think that it makes a lot of sense that it would happen. So maybe we're headed toward a coach getting fired again, and that's going to, not make any of this easier. But I do think that if I was there, I'd be trying to keep around at least some semblance of a quote unquote core, even if you do have to trade Durant, even if you do try to move Beal, like, not be so dead set on making changes just for the sake of making changes. And I think you'll get that stuff come back. That stuff will come back organically.
I think as well, because I mentioned players' names, but I didn't mention the head coach. That is on Mike Budenholzer as well. Monty was really, really good at building a culture, which made him so good for that specific team and growing up with that team. I still think it was time to move on from Monty, as shown with the Pistons later on. But a lot of that goes on Budenholzer too. I mean, maybe even most of it goes on Budenholzer. They need that guy, and they don't.
Does that go on Budenholzer, or is that a mistake that a coach was hired who couldn't bring that when that was a need that the roster had? Because I don't think it's true that every coach develops that necessarily, right? Like, I think that in some cases it comes from the players, and the coach can be more of a tactician or something. That's true. Like with the Lakers right now, right? Like, I don't know if people think JJ Redick's strength is that he's some kind of motivator, just a dictator of the franchise type guy, but he's competitive, and he pushes the right buttons, and then the culture probably comes from like LeBron, and some of that stuff. So I don't know, like it's not like an excuse, but like with Bud, it's maybe he just was a bad hire for what this team needed. And the fact that he wasn't going to bring that, like, he can't be a different person, but maybe they shouldn't have hired him.
Well, that also might be inarguable at this point, that Bud just wasn't what this team needed. He runs a completely different style of offense that for some reason, some of us just maybe thought it was going to work out. But I think part of why Devin Booker's having a down year to Devin Booker standards is the fact that he's playing in a different offense that doesn't suit the needs that he does well. And you can maybe even point that out times with Kevin Durant, who's still having an awesome season and is potentially on the cusp of a 40, 50, 40, 90 season. But I just don't think anything about Bud is fit. We've talked about that all year long. Nothing about this team fits, man. Everyone is a square peg in a round hole outside of Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, even Bradley Beal. So I would agree with you on that.
Maybe another answer is prioritize fit more, right? I mean, think about that more than they have. I mean, not again, like, it's sort of obvious to say that with like the big three, for instance, but I mean across the board, right? Like, was Yusuf Nurkic a fit when he came in? Was Tyus Jones as much of a fit as we thought he would be? On and on, kind of down the line. Like, Grayson Allen, even, I think, when he plays the same position as two of your big three, like, I think some of that stuff is, if they had just gotten similar quality players who fit better with some of these transactions, maybe that even would have helped more than we realize, right? I mean, I think that's another lesson.
Well, and there's a Matt Ishbia thing, right? Where if Ishbia prioritized more about fit than he did about just talent, his team probably wouldn't be where they are right now. Or James Jones, if you wanted to go that route, even though you and I think are both of the belief that Ishbia is the one calling the shots. So it's a good point. It's a good point to be made.
All right, that'll wrap us up. Hit follow, subscribe if you have not already. We will be back for you tomorrow night after Suns Grizzlies. Yes, there is another basketball game to be played as we put to the test whether this performance can maybe feel a little good, or unfortunately Memphis sends the Suns right back to earth.
We're winning tomorrow.
Okay, all right. We'll be back for you either way. Hit follow or subscribe, and we'll check you then.